So welcome back, everyone, to another virtual tasting with Binny's Beverage Depot. It is not Whiskey Wednesday. It is Mezcal Wednesday this week. I'm Pat from the Whiskey Hotline, along with Joe and Brett, of course. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Bryan Cranston. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So we're going to talk about, you got a Mezcal brand. Aaron was supposed to be on too, but he's getting eaten by robots on set or something, Joe tells me. So hopefully he'll be okay, but I'm sure you'll have us covered here. I don't know who our other person is under Aaron and Bryan. You want to introduce yourself? Going in and out there on the porch?
Yep. Yeah, it's JB Woodworth. I'm the VP of Sales.
Okay.
For Dos Hombres.
We normally exclude the marketing suits, so consider yourself in a privileged position.
Yep. Okay.
So Bryan, how did you end up in the Mezcal business? First of all, was this something that you had tried before, or was this mostly Aaron's doing? Who's responsible for this thing?
I blame Aaron Paul. He got me. And first of all, thanks for having us. We're really excited about being here. And Aaron would have loved to have been on today. I know he is working. He is doing another season of Westworld. And yeah, like you said, I think he's at this moment being eaten by robots. But we'll leave that for now. But he's sorry he couldn't make it. And so I'll tell our story. Aaron and I met on Breaking Bad, and over 7 years of working together. It got very intimate. He was like a son or a younger brother to me. And we saw each other all the time. And then the show ends in 2013, and we go our separate ways because that's what happens in life. Like when you leave high school or college, you think, oh, I'm always going to be close to these people and we're always going to stay in touch. And then life intercedes and you all get split up and you go your own way. Well, we were about 3 years after that, about 2016, we were both in New York at the time. And we discovered we were both there. Let's have dinner. So we went out and we had sushi, and we were lamenting about the fact that we didn't get a chance to see each other anymore. And how can we fix that? And like complicated guys, women just say, I miss you. Let's have lunch and let's see each other more often. But guys like, well, we have to have some activity in order to see each other. We have to play golf or tennis or whatever you do. And so I said, I think it's too early. You're Jesse Pinkman. I'm Walter White. People are going to know us for that. So we can't really do, a production yet. So he said, I know. Why don't we go into the mezcal business? And I thought, wow, that's a terrible idea.
Wait. Getting into the mezcal business was an excuse to just get together and have lunch?
Yes.
That's totally reasonable.
And could not be more closely associated with making movies and TV shows.
Well, I mean, it's like, here's the deal. What we found is that there's a lot of crossover and a lot of similarities between making a product that is enjoyed by people, millions of people, in a two-dimensional form, watching a movie or a television series, and making a product that actually ends up being a physical product that you can actually take. But the similarities are they're both something that we cannot be prouder of. We're at the stage, we've been very fortunate. There's no reason that either one of us should do anything that we're not exceedingly proud of. So when he suggested to do a mezcal, I immediately flashed back to my childhood, and I thought, well, not childhood, but my teenagehood, when I was in high school and then college, playing poker with my friends, and we never had any money. So we'd all pull in a couple bucks here and loose change there, and we'd buy a 12-pack of beer and some bottle of whatever. And the whatever was usually what's cheap. Mm-hmm. And often it was a bottle of mezcal. And one bottle I remember particularly, it had the worm at the bottom.
Of course, yeah.
All hollowed out.
For a long time, that was the only, and as far as the United States went, unless you were in southern Arizona, southern New Mexico, southern Texas, or southern California, you only saw that, which we won't name because it still exists and we're not going to like pile on. But
Yeah.
yes, I know exactly the same bottle with the worm.
Yep.
Yes, and it was terrible. When it was
Yes.
open, it smelled like cleaning fluid, and it tasted worse than that. So nobody drank it. We ended up using it almost as a punishment. If one of the guys if they show up later, they spill their beer or whatever, you got to sip the mezcal. And so when he said we should do a mezcal together, I thought, you're out of your mind. And I told him that my background, and he said, you're tasting terrible. It's like, so here, come with me. He took me to a mezcal bar in New York City. And we sat down, and I'm looking at this massive amount of inventory of all these mezcals, and I'm tasting them in little sips and shots. And as you guys know, they're different, varying degrees of strength, varying degrees of smoke. Some are sweet, some are stout, some are, in different colors. I mean, it blew my mind, and my eyes opened up, and I go, well, I clearly had a terrible mezcal when I was playing poker. So I said, okay, look, this sounds like fun, and I'm really digging what I'm drinking here. But let's make a pact that when we go down to Oaxaca, we're going to do it in a way that is just a vacation. And if by chance we find something that we can both be really passionate about and fall in love with, then we'll do it. But if not, let's just say we had a week vacation. And he agreed, and we went down there. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is just going to be a vacation. And the reason is because, and I tease him about this, I have a very sophisticated sense of taste. I like to be seduced with my spirit. I like to taste something and go, oh, hello, what's your name? And tell me more about you, and have a relationship with it. And he likes to take a sip of something and go, ah, and fire come out of his mouth. And I'm thinking, that's just not me. So, and unbeknownst to both of us, because we had two very different palates, that actually helped us find the one juice, because we tasted about 80 or 90 different mezcals down in Oaxaca. And most of them, I would taste something and go, hey, try this. And he'd go, no, it's too soft, it disappears. And he would, hey, try this. And I would taste it and allow my esophagus to stop burning and before I can talk again. And then, so we weren't finding it. And then on the very last day of our week trip, we were in this little town called San Luis del Rio, 3 hours outside of Oaxaca City. And now Oaxaca City in the state of Oaxaca is one of the poorer states in Mexico. It's way down south. So they didn't get the benefit of American tourists coming in until now. Now there are mezcal tours, much like wine tours to Napa Valley or so. But back then, no. And so it's about 3 hours outside of Oaxaca City, 2 hours on what they call a highway, but it's challenging. And then 1 hour on a dirt road switchback going up to this little village. This little village, there's 350 people who live there. There's one landline telephone in the middle of town. And I kid you not, it rings, and whoever's closest to it answers it. And then it's, I see Roberto, un momento, and they hold it up, and then they send a kid to go run and get Roberto. And then however long it takes Roberto to get to the phone, I mean, this is what we're dealing with. And it's sweet, and these people are so genuine and loving and very familial. And I think that's what the thing I think about the Mexican culture in itself is very familial, very much keep that family together, make sure that they wouldn't do business with us until they got to know us and broke bread with them and talked to them about their children and our children. And then our maestro Gregorio, Gregorio was willing to want to do business with us. So let me step back again. So we get to this little town and we're trying a bunch of different things and nothing was hitting us. And then we tried, someone said, there's one more palenque that's across the river, San Luis del Rio. So, but you have to hike up your boots and, take off your boots, hike up your pants. And it's like, okay. So we did. And we slung our boots over our shoulders and our pant legs are up to our knees and we're wading through the river. And on the other side of the river, we meet this guy and he's got a long machete knife and he's in front. He's just like, follow up and follow me. And he's hacking away at all this vegetation on his way through. And it did cross my mind, how many people know where we are? And so we walk through this place and all of a sudden we come to an opening. And in this opening is this little, basically a still. There's a production of hooch and there's a donkey there. And that's, it was amazing. And so we learned all about the palenque with the earthen pits where they smoke the agave, then the tahona where they crush it, and then the oak barrels where the fermentation process happens, and then the copper kettles where the distillation process happens. And then it comes out in these spouts, raw, unfiltered. And we took these little half shells and we put it underneath the taps, the first for raw, and a salud, and we tasted it. And Aaron and I, swear to God, we had this aha moment of tasting it and went, oh, wait a minute, smelled it, smells great, taste it. We looked at each other and it was like, is it really? It's good for you and it's good for it, really? And it's like, oh my God. Now, the nervous thing for us was, this was the last day, the last place we were visiting before we're going back home, and we didn't find it. Did we fool ourselves? Did we convince ourselves or will ourselves to say, yeah, this is the right one? Or did we find it? So we took samples back to the States and we conducted 2 blind taste tests that Aaron and I were both in. We didn't know of these 8 identical glasses, which was the juice that we selected. Some were already on the market. Some that we sampled down there that we did like, that Michael, our CEO, brought up, and he was running it. And so we had our friends and family there. There was about 12 people on each blind taste test to conduct this. And that was when I was the most nervous. Like, did we fool ourselves or did we find it? And fortunately, what became Dos Hombres rose to the top and was the choice. And so it was like a relief more than anything that we did truly find something that was special and unique. And we're still, to this day, we're very excited. So, oh, look at this. It says Breaking Bad on there. This is the last day of our production that we had these printed up. And so I'm going to toast myself with some Dos Hombres in my.
Some days you just got to toast yourself.
Well, that's good. Maddie, actually, I think Maddie on Facebook just asked, are you actively trying to separate this mezcal from the whole Breaking Bad thing, or is there some opportunity using the show in partnership with your new product?
Well, we are who we are. We're very fortunate to have that part of our lives, and we look back on it with such reverence and gratefulness. Aaron and I, neither of us want to separate from that. We want to embrace that. But in order for this product to become as popular as it has been in the last 2 years, and then go on to become what we want, is it to be the number 1 mezcal in the world. That's our goal. Now it's a lofty goal. That carrot is dangling in front of us and we keep reaching for it. And every step we're going, we get closer and closer. We have no intention of stopping all the way through. We want it to be the number 1 in the world. And we have this product that we love and we're passionate about, and we're willing to do anything. Getting on the Zoom call with you guys is like, absolutely, I love it. And by the way, salud. I'll
Salute.
do a spirit.
At the end of the day, though, it's just
No,
another controlled substance that starts with the letter M, right? So
Oh,
there's
look at
something
well,
familiar.
you're
well,
just
but then now we need to we need to step a little bit back into the nerd verse. So for people,
Mhm.
depending on how a couple of things. So you talked about how small this village, San Luis del Rio, is. That was one of Ron Cooper's original villages. How
Mhm.
many Palenques? How many Palenques in and around that tiny? Just for to give people context, how many different people are producing, so they understand sort of how that is the fiber of a lot of the villages, especially in that part of Mexico.
good question. This little town, that's all they do. They're only mescaleros in this town. It goes back, traced back at least 4 generations.
Wow.
And I mean, the spirit, as we know, it's ages old. It's
Well,
so old. And what's so great about it is that you can make it out of anything. And like a wine, you can blend and you can have one varietal, varietal, and or you can continue on. Now we have this is our espadine that we use, which is we can definitely harvest and plant and replant. Takes about 6 years to mature before it's ready to be harvested. We also came out recently with a tobola, which is a beautiful, much smaller plant. The yield is not great. It takes 25 years
Yep.
for each plant to mature before it's ready to harvest. And you can only get them in the wild. So they have to go out and locate them. And like the farmers that they are, and the respect that they have for the land, they have a policy where they plant and reseed wherever they take. So it's always reforestation, if you will.
Mhm.
And even the land itself is land leased. So Gregorio, our maestro, doesn't own the property.
right.
I think it's a very holistic kind of native sensibility that God owns this property, and we're trying to make the best of it and honoring it. And they have a great policy within this little town that all the mescaleros rotate to city managers for a year. They'll if you're up to the point of being a mescalero, and there's probably I don't know offhand, but I'm guessing with how many palenques there are, there's probably a half a dozen mescaleros in this one town. And our mescalero, Dos Hombres, has done so well. We started out with 1 palenque. We have 2 now, and we're acquiring a third to just produce for Dos Hombres. So we need the volume because the sales have been going crazy. And in July 9th will be our 2nd anniversary. And there's about 150 different brands of mezcal in North America. And in less than 2 years, we've rose to the number 6 spot. So it's a great market. It's a wide open market that's growing exponentially, as you guys know, and we're filling that need. So we're excited, and we're
So
continuing on.
how are you getting with that? Because just for the life cycle and everything, that is actually, you said that you've added palenques to be able to get to that volume. And how are you? So how are you planning to go forward, knowing the amount of stress that's placed on the plant because of the life cycle, and a lot of stress just general in Oaxaca, with people coming down and taking in plants, and people who maybe aren't treating producers as well as you guys are attempting to introduce? How are you sort of factoring that in going forward?
Well, very early on in our processing, when we first had our product available on the market, July 9th, 2019, we knew right away the absolute essential need to have Gregorio, not just someone we hire, but be a part of the ownership. So for his birthday that year, we gave him part ownership of the company, and he's never had that before. He's in his 40s, and he's been producing since he learned how to make mezcal when he was 8. Wow. And he was doing it on his own when he was 17 years old. So now he's 44 years old. So he's been doing it a long time. So he's part owner of Dos Hombres, and we're very proud of that. Yeah. And they have, this place is, like I said, it's 3 hours outside of the main city. And it reminded me of Napa Valley with the hillsides. And, agave plants don't love to be in flat land, because when it rains, it rots the roots. And we're in the agriculture business now. We have to be concerned with that. Now, fortunately, agave plants are very drought resistant. They're infest resistant. They're really hardy. And that's how they've been able to exist over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's hard to get to. This place is an effort to get to, and it's a very close-knit community. And so they're watching. And so now that Dos Hombres is growing exponentially, Gregorio has arranged to lease more land, and he hires everybody within. So if a mezcalero is not working as much, he'll hire him to take care of one palenque, hire another one to do another palenque, and everybody works. So they have this kind of co-op mentality in this town, that we're all helping each other. And that's where all the mezcaleros rotate 1 year of being the city manager, and they have that additional responsibility to also being a mezcalero.
That's good, because that's good, because that's a lot of the question that people have, is how does ownership in an American company can kind of be a little meaningless when you're working subsistence in a village 3 hours outside of what's already a small town. So that translation over to the ability to actually translate partial ownership in a company into the ability to help sustain a village, is meaningful.
Yeah. And I mean, we're very proud of that. And as we grow, it was part of our mission statement to do good where we go. And we've heard the stories, all too often about Americans coming down there, raping the land, taking advantage of people, and not following through with your promises. And we want no part of that. Just like Aaron and I weren't about to slap our name on some existing product. Yeah, that's fine. I don't even drink mezcal, but go ahead and good luck. I hope I make lots of money. I'm not interested in that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't have to work another day in my life. So why would I spend any time at all on something that I wasn't really passionate about? It would be a fool's journey. So the only reason that we're doing this is because we truly fell in love with it. We love the juice. We love the people we found. We're going back down there again this year, to continue to establish that relationship and let them know we're here, and answer any questions he may have. And it's been a great experience, and we have a lot of plans on ways to help the community of San Luis del Rio, and then Oaxaca City in itself. I'm supposedly in December going down there, meeting the governor of the state of Oaxaca with a couple of proposals that we want to do to help out.
Nice. I mean, like you mentioned, too often there's a lot of American companies that go down there, license some mezcal brand out and pay, pennies on the dollar for what other people are paying livable wages off of. So, that's a question we get a lot of, certainly as we've seen this crazy boom in celebrity brands, especially with tequila and stuff. It was an important thing to address. So we appreciate that.
Well,
yeah.
And to have you be able to come on and just make it a point to let people know that it wasn't just, that looks okay. So make sure my picture looks good in the advertising, and sign a bit of paper, and then you're off to the races, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens a lot, unfortunately, with some of these brands.
It is. And you know, what I mentioned earlier about Gregorio was true. He was honest. He said, we both tasted this and said, this is great, let's do it. And he told our interpreter, I need to think about it and spend some more time with them before I want to do business. And it was such a refreshing thing to hear, because let's face it, Americans don't even need to like the person you're doing business with. You just need to uphold your end of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way in many, I would say, of the more romantic countries like Mexico and Spain and Italy and Greece, and they just have a need to bring you in. And when we went to his house, and I mean, his house is so humble. They don't have a lot, but they gave everything that they have. And this little daughter bringing tortillas to the table and trying to talk to her in my terrible broken Spanish, but she's answering me, and I asked her how old she is. And, you know, it was really a breath of fresh air, really opened our eyes to say, relax, exhale, embrace this culture, embrace the way of doing business, and be simpatico with these people. And it's proven to be a great relationship.
Yeah, their measure of success is much, much, much different than ours.
Much different.
And that's, have you just, so Espadín, of course, is probably the primary species of agave that is growing in that area, as well as Tobola, but it's not the only one. Have you guys played around with or had them play around with possibly producing an ensemble or a single agave spirit from Quiche, Madre Quiche, Tobazache, you know, some of the other species endemic to Oaxaca? Yes,
we've talked a lot about that, and we're taking baby steps in that area. We have the Tobola that comes out, but that's only like, because it's so rare and it takes 25 years to mature, we only have 400 bottles per quarter coming out in that, and that goes so quickly. It's been a big hit, so we'll continue to do that because it's proven itself. We won't put anything out on the market that we don't really love. So right now we have the Espadín and the Tobola, and they're both Hovens. So we're then going to take, we have some barrels now aging. So we're going to try a Reposado and an Ajo, and in different kind of barrels, different essence, you know, barrels that had bourbons or rums or something. We're trying to see what's going to really interest us and be attractive to other people and in their different palates and different tastes. But like I said, we've only been on the market for 2 years, and we're doing really, really well. So we don't want to spread ourselves too thin with too many SKUs and trying to juggle everything. So we want to make sure that our flagship Dos Hombres is getting out there. We're making strides in moving from the south up through into the north in the States and then into Canada. And we're now we have inroads in starting in Europe, and they're thirsty for it. And it's to them, you know, a mezcal is brand new, and wow, what is it? And they're kind of curious about it. And so we want to be the mezcal that people reach for or know by name.
I will say it's a really approachable mezcal, but that doesn't mean it's simple. You know, that there's a clear difference, I think, with some really cheap, you know, made to be done quick type of mezcals. And obviously everything on the market, almost everything on the market, is an Espadín and a Joven right now, but this holds its own. It's got this soft floral sweetness to it. It's clean. It still has a bit of that smoke. It really is, you know, when tasted blind, as to your personal testimony, it really stands up with next to anything.
Well, you're also closer, by the way, when you describe the way you approach things versus the way Aaron approached it. It is, so Aaron's good for Malort. See, he's not here, so we can make fun of him.
Yeah.
Aaron's good for Malort, but we have this raging debate with people who are, there are a couple of people, Michael Rubel, who is known as, is just a very well-known mezcal figure in Chicago, Lou Bank, who runs Sacred Agave. We've had this discussion as to whether or not the fire, what Aaron likes, isn't actually really just they messed up, because it means that somehow, and you saw how they cooked in the pit, that somehow when they were cooking the agave, they didn't quite get the bagasse and everything on top of the stones quick enough, so it didn't scorch the agave, so you get the burnt character from the scorched agave. So this is part, and it's a compliment to this drinks well, because they obviously, when they're cooking, they know how to get things done in such a way that they don't let smoke be a dominant characteristic. It's just a nuance instead.
Right. And, you can equate that to sometimes if you put too much hot sauce on a Mexican meal, it's like all you're tasting is the spice, the hot, you're blowing out your mouth. And every other herb and ingredient is gone and lost. And, I kid him because his street level taste, I said, why don't you just put the bottle in a brown paper bag and swig it as you walk down the street? And and then it's the APV, and wondering where do we stand on that scale? Because the same juice can be a little more potent, a little less. And we landed at 42 because it was just enough. When we tried a 40, 42, 43, 45, and 47, and a 50. And 50 was just, to me, rocket fuel. And it was like, wow. As smooth as it still was, you could really feel the potency of it. And I thought, well, I don't know how, someone's going to have one drink of that and go, I'm done. So you don't want that. And you don't want it to overpower when people have it in a mix. Now, I like to drink it neat. I will often have it, with a slice of orange and just take a little bite of the orange and then take a sip. People want it with a rock. That's great. And then most people I introduce it to, they go, I don't know what mezcal is. I said, let me make up, what a margarita. Yeah, I love margaritas. Let me make a margarita for you. So it's like an entry, and it's a softer landing for them to come into the mezcal world if you mix it up in a margarita instead of tequila. So that added little smoke gives it another little kick to it without it being overpowering. And it's like anything, it's a blend. You got to mix it just right, always with fresh lime juice and whether you put Cointreau or triple sec or whatever your thing is to make a margarita. When I do plays too. I was on Broadway a couple times, and I tell my company when I get them together, this audience is never wrong. It's our responsibility to guide them through a story, to hold their hand, take them on a journey, and then leave them feeling better than when they came in. And that's the same feeling I have when in this business. That audience is never wrong. Whoever drinks this and says, oh, it's too smoky, you're not wrong. It's right for you. You never, ever make the customer wrong. That's right for them. So then you find out, okay, do you like it a little fruit forward or sweet forward? Okay, let me mix it up a little differently. Now taste this. Oh, now that's good. I go, okay, that's just measurements. Now you're just talking about being a scientist, which I know a little bit of something about chemistry. But they're not wrong. And like you guys in your stores, it's like finding that alchemy of what that customer's tastes are and finding how you can meet their tastes and then support them in that and say, okay, what you like is instead of 2 ounces you put 2 ounces of your mixer and of your pineapple juice or whatever, and 1 ounce of this. And so they're more satisfied. Again, never, ever wrong.
It's something we talk about with our staff too, when we're talking about product selection, how it varies by store, and each, we have over 40 locations, but each are kind of catered to their specific neighborhood. And it's something Brett always mentions when we're doing staff trainings is if it was Brett's Beverage Depot, it would fit on one table. But because we're serving these broader markets, it is what it is by each store.
Brett is so limited. He's so narrow-minded in his scope of things.
I do have a question for you. With being newer into the liquor business, has something surprised you, or what do you think has been the biggest challenge in being in the liquor business now in the past couple of years?
Well, we came in only 6 months before the pandemic. So, learning all about the on-premise, off-premise business and how different they are, but how they work in conjunction with each other, how important both are. I think there's more similarities than differences. Similarities are, as I mentioned before, we're in the entertainment business. All of us on this call, we're all in the entertainment business. We are bringing enjoyment to people. We need them to feel good about their experience with this. And therefore they will come back and have more good experiences. That's a good business to be in.
It is.
You create a story, you create something and they enjoy it and they're having a good time. That's a good business to be in. And all of us could be digging ditches instead and for a living, and that's work. So first off, I just think all of us we're lucky to be in this business. And the other thing I learned, which is no surprise to me, it's all hard work. You got to roll up the sleeves and do the work. I do seminars all the time at high school and colleges for young drama students. And there's always one or two or three who raise their hand and say, hey, yeah, man. So like, what kind of car do you drive? How many houses do you own? Yeah. And I go, okay, I can save you a lot of time. Oh yeah, what's that? Look, don't try to become an actor, because you're just looking for an end result and not the work. You're looking for, how do I circumvent the work? There's no magic pixie dust. It's all about doing the work. And that's what I found the common denominator. All you guys working hard, you're constantly, you have there's competition. You let it go and someone's going to take over. There's we got to be like sharks and constantly moving and constantly pitching the product and finding out what that customer wants, whether it's individual with me when I go into a bar and someone says, oh, no, I can't, it's too smoky. And I go, well, let me try something. And like I said, you change it. So you don't give up on them. You find what they like. And then you support that and say, this is where you should go, what you'd like. And you're never wrong. And it's just a fun business. I'm learning a lot as we go along, and I know I have a lot more to learn. And every time I go down to Oaxaca, I pick up knowledge and marvel at how it's done. It says on our bottle, I'll stop picking it up because it looks like a commercial. It says though, mezcal artisanal, and that's by, we're restricted. You can't put those words on your label.
That's a law.
If you have any modern technology in the process of your mezcal. At our palenques, now we have 3 of them. There is no electricity. There is no running water. There's no piped water. They bring in water through a diverter into a well. And the ingredients to our mezcal is smoked agave and mountain spring water. And that's it. Yep. It's about 73 calories per ounce. It's pure. It's just, and man, you can drink this in a very liberal sense and not have a hangover.
Well, the blending, and people I think a lot of people, we did an agave series with David Suro and Lubank, amongst others, early in the pandemic. And one of the first things we covered were how to read a label. And hopefully a lot of folks who tuned into that remember the fact that that's not, a marketer did not come up with mezcal artisanal. That's a regulation. And it says something. You were also talking about, when you're proofing it down, because 42 is on the low side, but sometimes you'll get product that comes out, and Hoven is on the label, which is another thing. So what we tried to also explain in that series was that while it's crystal clear, it's still aged in a sense, in that most of these products go into glass or some sort of container and rest for a period of time, and not a short period of time, 9 months, a year, 2 years. And so how long, I'm assuming you guys have a resting period where things are kind of softening up. So about how long are they doing that, or is it just batch by batch? And then how much blending do you do with those batches when you finally get a bottling that's being ready to, go to market?
Well, there is a resting period, but I think it varies from batch to batch. And like with wine, from batch to batch, it changes. There are slight variations to it. And I like that. I like that it's not the same. I like that if they've got an abundance of rain or a drought, or maybe it was excessively hot or overcast more days than usual, they have to adjust their harvesting period, and that also adjusts the taste of the agave itself. And one batch maybe it's smoked a little less or a little more, or it's like it's imprecise art. And maybe that's an oxymoron, but it is art in very sense of the word. And the actual definition of that is that it's in the eye of the beholder. Is that art is, again, the customer is never wrong. It is what you would interpret it to be. And I never try to push mezcal on someone who tastes it and go, ooh, not for me. It's like, okay, that's all right. You're right.
So we got a couple questions. You want to get to those, Brett?
Yeah, one of them, how do you smoke agave, which was an anonymous. It's what Brian's talking about, or what we were talking about with the smoke. So the way these are done traditionally, there's a stone pit in the ground and a whole bunch of volcano stones, usually because that's the terroir they have. And they build a fire out of oak, whatever's local, Encino and different strains. Then they pile all the stones on top of the oak with a chimney. They light the oak on fire. Takes 8-10 hours for it to burn down. The stones fall. They move the stones around so they're in a perfect cone. Then when they're ready to go and they're white hot but not on fire, to get some smoke but prevent smoke, they dump the fibers from previous mashes. They cover all the stones up with these fibers from the mashes. Then they throw mats on, or then they throw the agave on top of that and make it nice and even and round. Then they cover that up with dirt, or actually with mats, then dirt. And that's how they cook. So that addresses. So how were you guys able to be there for building a pit, Brian?
Not for building a pit, but one was in its third day. Gregorio usually allows 4 days for his agave to smoke. And he uses interesting, and again, artistic, is that he employs banana leaves. There's a lot of bananas in this, banana trees in this area, and mango trees, and apples during the winter. And it's really a lot of different fruits and wildflowers. And so the bats and the bees cross-pollinate all these and bring those essence of a fruitiness and an earthiness to it in the spirit itself. And he uses a lot of the banana leaves in covering the first uncooked agave. And I think there's an essence of a sweetness coming through as it creates that blanket for the smoking process to happen over the 4 days.
Interesting. And even more nerdy, does he do it after the bagasse? So does he and so the rest of the question is, the way you prevent the smoke is the bagasse contacts on the hot, the molten, the very hot rocks, and that flames rather than the agave. So which is why you only get a little bit of smoke. Now here's a question: when he puts a banana on, does he put bagasse, then banana, then agave, or does he put bagasse, agave, then banana, then covered up with the mats and the dirt?
Oh, for God's sake, Brett, you are a pain in the ass. It's like saying, it's like sock, shoe, or sock, shoe.
Right. Well, I mean, you might as well, if you got a really nice pair of socks you want people to see, you got to wear them outside your shoes.
I'm going down again in December, and I'm, every time I'm going to open up and I'm going to pay special attention to what that procedure is, what that process is, because I can't answer that.
But that's very unique. So you see, but that is something that each individual person, like you said, that's the artistry, and artistry is imperfect. Mm-hmm. It's the beauty of imperfection to a certain extent.
And sometimes it doesn't work, but the beauty of that is that you learn, oh, okay, that process didn't, this little variation, it didn't help. So let's move away from that and go into this. And so we're gonna, it's all a work in progress, and we're gonna let our palates be the guide to this. And if it pleases us, which we have a very high standard to do just that, then we'll allow it to go out onto the market.
Okay. Couple more questions here. Marco asked how many markets you guys are in now in the US. I mean, it's still just the US, correct?
No, we're also in Mexico. We're in the UK. We're in Spain. We're in Abu Dhabi, believe it or not.
Wow.
And
duty free.
Yeah, duty free. And so we're in a bunch of those. I would say now, without being advised to how many right now, I'm thinking that there's probably 30 states that we're in, maybe 35. So we're gaining, as you know, when you're dealing with alcoholic beverage, regulators are and it's tough, and the bureaucrats in each state have no interest in hurrying up your request.
Not at all.
A license. Like, we keep calling, like, is there any movement? Yeah, it's in the queue. It's like, okay. But our design was to go with the states that had a relationship first with tequilas and with mezcals. And so we went California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, New York, Illinois, and we started that way because of population and because of Latino demographics, and then slowly, and also much more in the urban areas more than the rural areas, except in those southern states where the rural areas, they're familiar with it, with the mezcal, like in the Texas and everything, and which we've done really well. So there's no hurry. Ours is to be number one, not number one in the world, not the first in the world.
Thank you. Jeff Huber wants to know, 2 years in, what are you most proud of, and is there anything you'd do differently?
What am I most proud? I think I'm most proud of the relationships that we've been developing over the time, and meeting some great people. All of you, exception to that, but
beat me to the punch.
Nah, I think that we were able to meet the demand. It was a new business to me, so I had a huge learning curve, and I'm still in it, of course. I'm still in my acting learning curve. Because things change, they're constantly moving and changing, and as I age, I'm understanding different things about myself, and I move into different categories of a character, and I'm finding that with this too, that it doesn't stay still. Learning about this business doesn't stand still. It keeps shifting and moving in different tastes, different sensibilities with your customers are they're shifting and changing. Look at, who would have guessed Japanese whiskey would be where it's going. It's like, wow, okay. And so many people have said to us, I'm glad you didn't come out with a vodka. Because
us too.
So are we.
How do you differentiate yourself?
It's hard to get an hour of discussion out of a vodka, that's for sure.
Yeah. I would say, what would I change? I would cut out Aaron Paul and do it myself.
Even though it's his idea.
Yes, it's his idea. Okay. No, he's not only the impetus to start this business, he really knows it, and he was a huge fan of mezcal way before I was. So this business would not exist without Aaron Paul, and it wouldn't exist without Gregorio, our maestro. And I'm just trying to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, and take it all in and enjoy the ride. I'm not so much like business. I want to take a moment, sit back, take a sip, enjoy the ride, and appreciate all the good fortune and luck that I've had in my life, and keep it going.
Nice.
So you said earlier that you drink it typically neat waters. We had another question, which I think you kind of answered. Is it meant to be enjoyed neat, on the rocks, mixed in a cocktail, all of the above?
Remember, customer is never wrong.
Correct. We have a saying, I don't care how you drink it, as long as you buy it from us.
As long as you buy it from us. But they're only going to buy booze from you if you help them discover what they don't know they like.
Right.
You guide them to where you might open up their world to, and I know I've had people go, I had no idea this is what mezcal was. I had no idea. And I'm a huge fan of it now. And they're people who were just wine. My wife is really a white wine drinker. That's what she was, white wine. And now I'm in this business, and now unprompted by me, we'll go to a restaurant and she'll ask, what's your mezcal cocktail like? And I won't say anything, and she'll go, I'll have the mezcal cocktail. And I always want to try another one or something, just to taste it, to see what kind of mixes they use and what they did. And then, of course, give them my card and say, we need to be in your bar. So that's a fun part of it too, is to be able to surprise people and walk up to them and say, you got to buy my booze or else.
In a very threatening manner.
We're getting some comments here. People are happy that you're talking about cooking again.
Yeah, all the Facebook feed is just all about cooking.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's cook. Come on, bitches.
Now here, Anonymous, here's what might we expect the one and only Ivan and Dos Hombres collab, and would Aaron be into that? Just answer for him.
The one and only Ivan is a movie I did for Disney.
Right.
Not appropriate. It's not appropriate to bring that in. Shame on you.
Which is why, well, that's anonymous. Maybe that's why anonymous.
Why they asked anonymous.
And that's why, if you notice, that's why you make the donkeys on the label are true to scale and not cute. Because if they were cute, then it would be pandering.
That's right. Yes. But the one and only Ivan is a very good movie. You should watch it with your kids.
I'm sure it's on Disney Plus.
And do not give your kids mezcal.
And do not give your kids mezcal.
Well, Bryan, thanks a lot. We really appreciate you taking this time to talk mezcal with us tonight and give us a little look behind this brand. I know you're busy, and I know there's a million people wanting you to do these things, so we really do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Like I said, I love it, and Aaron sends his blessings, and sorry that he couldn't make it. And I mean, we've all been through a lot. Our business collectively has done pretty damn well. And but what we miss is that firsthand exchange. So when we open up and when I'm in the area, definitely want to come into Benny's and be able to, you know, in some of your stores, you have tastings, yes?
Slowly
Yes.
getting back there. Yeah.
Yes. And so, I mean, how great would it be to come into the store and meet all you guys and to just taste it and shoot the bull and have some
You can
fun.
give everyone your threatening sales pitch in person.
That's right.
That's right.
Buy
Well-
my booze.
That's right. And if we get our hands on it, we would actually love to have you back with Aaron, and maybe we could just take a deeper dive into Tobola when a little bit comes out and we have a little bit available. That would be fun to just talk about that, because it's one of the legendary agaves. It's becoming one of the more controversial agaves because of its scarcity. So, you know, it would be fun to talk about that and what you guys are doing with it.
Great. Love to do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Bryan, and thank you everybody who tuned in tonight. This is going to live on our YouTube page if you missed the first part of it or anything. So, Bryan, thank you again. Really appreciate your time. Cheers to you. Cheers to everybody else.
Salud.
Salud. Have a good night, everyone.
Cheers.